Hello there, and welcome to this quiet corner of thought, a place where curiosity does not rush, but strolls softly the way evening light drifts through a half-open curtain. Tonight we will take a journey together, not to the stars, not even across oceans, but downward, into the long memory of the Earth itself. The title of our journey is simple enough to say, and yet it lingers in the chest like a low hum. Were there civilizations before us? Civilizations now reduced to dust and silence. Before we dive too quickly into answers, let's linger in the stillness of this very moment. Perhaps you are lying down, your body stretched across a mattress that remembers the weight of many nights. Maybe the air is cool. Maybe a little warm, stirred only by the rhythm of a fan or the faint hiss of pipes. Beyond your walls, cars might pass or dogs might bark, but here, in the space between your ears, we are entering a slower realm. Each word lands like a footstep in soft sand. Each pause is a breath. Imagine just for now that the earth beneath your floor is not just dirt and stone, but a vast stage. A stage where countless plays have already been performed. Some were short, mere sketches of life that blinked out before the curtain rose. Others lasted millions of years with creatures so strange that they might as well have been characters from another planet. And among those possibilities, perhaps, just perhaps, there were civilizations, societies that built, dreamed and vanished long before ours began. The thought is heavy at first. Civilizations we've never heard of. Not the Egyptians, not the Mesopotamians, not the Indus Valley, but something deeper in time swallowed by oceans folded into stone. It sounds like science fiction, and yet when you sit with it, when you let the scale of geological time seep in, the idea becomes less absurd and more inevitable. For the Earth is old, so old that our entire history, from cave paintings to satellites, is just a scratch on its surface. Close your eyes if that feels comfortable. Picture the Earth not as a globe in a textbook, but as a living clock. The hands do not sweep around in hours or days. They grind slowly, marking millions of years with each tick. Mountains rise, crumble, and return to the sea. Continents drift apart like rafts, then collide again, pushing up new peaks, then wearing them down to sand. Oceans fill empty and refill. Species appear, flourish, and fade. In that vast theatre, why would we imagine that humanity's story is the only one worth telling? Perhaps you have felt this intuition before on a quiet walk, maybe at the edge of ruins where weather-beaten stones lie scattered there, meaning half forgotten. You wonder who touched this surface, who carved these lines. Archaeologists may answer with dates and dynasties, but deeper still there is another whisper. How many stories lie buried beneath? Even these stories, consider for a moment the close fragility of what we call evidence. Paper crumbles. Bones dissolve, metals rust, plastics break down. Even concrete, which feels eternal when you walk past a skyscraper, begins to crack and return to rubble in a matter of centuries, if left untended. Now stretch that thought across millennia, across millions of years. Imagine our cities ground under glaciers, drowned beneath seas, or subducted into the hot mantle of the planet. What would remain? Perhaps nothing but a thin line of chemical oddities pressed into rock waiting for a future geologist, or perhaps a future species to puzzle over. That is why tonight's question is not just entertaining speculation. It is also a meditation on impermanence. Civilizations, like people, leave marks, but those marks fade. A child may carve their name into the bark of a tree, believing it will last forever. Yet seasons will come, bark will thicken, storms will tear branches away, and the tree will carry on without remembering. So too with Earth. It remembers in stone and sediment, not in stories or monuments. If other civilizations came before, they may be no more than whispers in the deep strata, hints too faint for us to recognize. And yet the idea comforts as much as it unsettles. If we are not the first, then we are not alone in being temporary. Our rise and fall would be part of a larger rhythm, not a failure, but a participation. To know that others may have walked, loved, struggled and vanished before us makes our presence feel less like a lonely accident and more like a chapter in an ancient ongoing book. As you listen, perhaps lying in the half-dark, notice how your body responds. The breath slows, the eyes grow heavier. This is not a lecture with bullet points. It is a gentle wandering, the kind you might take on a warm evening when the air smells of grass and the streetlights buzz faintly. We are not here to prove or disprove, only to hold the possibility like a stone in the palm, solid, smooth, but mysterious. Let's picture it together. Imagine you are walking along a beach. The sand is cool beneath your feet, packed firm where the tide has just retreated. Each wave leaves behind tiny fragments, a shell, a piece of glass, a smoothed pebble. You bend down to pick one up. It looks ordinary at first, but then you notice a pattern, a curve too perfect, a line too deliberate. Could it be a remnant of something made not by chance, but by hands long gone? You cannot know. The ocean has tumbled it for ages, erasing context. All you hold is a fragment divorced from the whole. Yet in that moment you feel connected to an invisible past. That feeling, that mix of wonder and uncertainty, is what we will carry through this story. Tonight we will ask gently, not urgently, what if Earth has seen civilizations before ours? What if their traces are hidden, not because they never existed, but because the planet is so skilled at erasing? What if history is not a straight line, but a cycle of rising and vanishing written in layers of dust? The Earth is patient. It can wait millions of years. We, by contrast, are brief. So while we are here awake together in this hour, let us listen to that patience. Let us lean into the hum of deep time where civilizations, ours and perhaps others, are like sparks in the night, bright for a moment, then folded into the quiet. And as you let these thoughts drift through, you notice again the present moment, the pillow beneath your head, the subtle warmth in your chest as air flows in and out. This is the gift of being temporary, to feel here and now without needing forever. Civilizations may come and go, but the experience of breathing, of listening, of wondering, that is eternal in its own small way. So, welcome once more. Tonight's story has no sharp edges, only gentle questions, soft images, and the calm rhythm of possibility. Together, we will walk through myths, science, philosophy, and imagination. We will explore ruins, real and imagined debates, old and new, and in the end we will return to silence, holding the question still unanswered, yet richer for having asked it. Because sometimes the value of a question is not in the answer, but in the way it changes the way we see. And perhaps tonight, as you drift towards sleep, the idea that other civilizations once walked this earth will not trouble you but cradle you, reminding you that nothing is alone, nothing is forever, and yet everything matters in its moment. So close your eyes if you wish. Let the question settle. Let the earth's long memory surround you like a blanket. And with that we begin. What if we are not the first? The question rests in the air like a candle flame in a darkened room, steady yet flickering. To speak it aloud is to invite both wonder and unease. After all, history, as we usually tell, it is neat, or at least we pretend it island. We learn of early hunter-gatherers of agriculture, sprouting like seeds 10 or 12,000 years ago, of villages swelling into cities of empires, rising and falling of the modern world, hurtling into electricity satellites and screens. It is a line, we think, a clear progression. But what if that line is only a thread pulled from a much larger tapestry? What if there were whole patterns woven before, now buried so deeply in the fabric of the earth that we can no longer see them? Pause here for a breath. Let the question sink into you, not like a riddle demanding a solution, but like a piece of music that lingers even after the last note. Imagine Earth not as a backdrop, but as a storyteller, ancient and patient. Its voice is stone, its memory is sediment, its language is erosion and uplift. In that story, our chapter is brief. If the planet has truly been speaking for 4.5 billion years, what arrogance it would be to assume we are the only characters who ever mattered. Think of the word civilization. What does it conjure for you, cities? Perhaps streets paved with stone markets, buzzing voices echoing in amphitheatres, or government's laws carved into clay proclamations shouted in squares, or technology tools beyond mere survival creations that alter the landscape and endure beyond the lifetimes of their makers. If that is our definition, then the unsettling part is this: how fragile such evidence really island. How thin the line between a bustling metropolis and a silent ruin, between a thriving culture and a ghost whispered only by rocks. Archaeology tells us much, but it also reminds us of its limits. Even within the short span of human history as we know it, vast civilizations have nearly vanished without a trace. The Maya left towering pyramids and cities, yet much of their story remains locked in jungle roots. The Indus Valley culture wrote a script we still cannot read, and those are recent compared to the scale of Earth. What of 10,000 years before them? 100,000, a million. The deeper we peer into time, the less clear the picture becomes. Now imagine this. The Earth reshapes itself relentlessly. Mountains rise and wear away. Oceans claim coastlines. Continents drift apart and slam back together. Ice sheets grind across whole regions, scraping away what once lay there. Volcanoes bury valleys in ash. Rivers change course, erasing settlements as if they had never existed. Even our tallest buildings left alone would crumble in centuries. Add not centuries but millions of years, and the slate is clean again. And so the central question emerges with greater weight. Could other civilizations have walked here before us? Civilizations we do not remember, not because they were insignificant, but because the Earth itself is such a powerful eraser. Take a slow breath. Imagine the ocean floor. We have mapped only a fraction of it. Beneath miles of water and sediment could lie traces we will never uncover. Or picture vast deserts where sand drifts endlessly covering and uncovering stone. Each gust of wind could be concealing fragments of forgotten lives. The Earth does not preserve evenly. It keeps some things, discards others, as if choosing what stories to allow us to hear. Some scientists call this idea the Silurian hypothesis, named after an old science fiction series. They ask, if an industrial civilization had existed millions of years ago, how would we detect it now? Not through buildings which would be gone, not through bones which would dissolve, but perhaps through chemical fingerprints, anomalies in sediments, unusual carbon isotopes, traces of synthetic molecules. The hunt is not for ruins, but for whispers in the chemistry of rocks. And yet, so far, nothing conclusive has appeared, which raises another possibility. Maybe there never were civilizations before us. Maybe we truly are the first. That is the skeptic's view, and it is important to honor it. After all, without evidence, all we hold are questions. But here tonight in this calm space, we are less concerned with proof than with possibility. Possibility is a gentle fire. It does not consume, it illuminates. Why does this question matter? Why do so many myths across cultures speak of lost cities, sunken kingdoms, hidden worlds beneath the ground? Atlantis, Lemuria, Shambhala, Agartha. The names differ, the stories shift, but the theme persists: humanity is not the beginning nor perhaps the pinnacle, but only the latest in a long sequence. These myths may be metaphor, or memory, or simply imagination, but the repetition itself is curious. Why, across so many times and places, do humans feel compelled to imagine civilizations before their own? Perhaps it is humility, a recognition that our place is not unique. Perhaps it is fear, the sense that all we build could vanish just as theirs did. Or perhaps it is hope, that if others rose before us, then rising again after collapse is always possible. Each interpretation colors the central question differently, like light through stained glass. And so tonight, we will let the question linger. Could Earth have hosted civilizations long before our calendars began? Could there have been thinkers, builders, storytellers, whose entire existence is now folded into stone? Or is the silence of the deep past proof that we are alone the first? To step onto this stage, as you hold these questions, let them settle gently. No need for an answer yet. Let the uncertainty itself be soothing, like a horizon hidden in mist, because in the end the value of asking is not in the certainty it brings, but in the wonder it sustains. And wonder, more than anything, is what keeps us awake just long enough to drift peacefully into sleep. So let the question echo softly as we continue. What if we are not the first? Before we continue wandering through deep time, let me pause with you for a moment. Not with data, not with legends, but with something closer. something as small as where you are right now. Because when we speak of civilizations lost in dust, it can feel distant, abstract, almost too large to touch. Yet the way we hold these questions is always personal, always rooted in the quiet space of our own lives. So let me ask gently, where are you listening from? Is it a small apartment in a city that never fully sleeps, where traffic murmurs outside like a restless tide? Or is it a quiet house, perhaps on the edge of a village where the night is, broken only by the occasional bark of a dog, or the hum of an old refrigerator keeping its steady vigil in the kitchen? Maybe you are already lying in the dark, your phone or your speaker casting the faintest glow, your eyes half closed, drifting between awareness and dream. Wherever you are, this moment links us. Across miles, across time zones, through wires and signals, a simple thread of sound ties your breath to mine. Breathe in slowly. Notice how the air feels against your chest. Maybe cool, maybe warm. Notice the weight of the blanket, the pressure of the pillow, the shape of your own body resting. These are small things, but they remind us of something essential. Every civilization, no matter how grand its temples, no matter how complex its systems, was once full of people simply lying down at the end of a long day feeling the same. Ordinary sensations, softness, breath, fatigue, hope. The dust of history is made not only from monuments, but from nights like these, repeated countless times by countless lives. That is why the question of forgotten civilizations is not only about evidence, it is about empathy. To imagine them is to imagine that someone somewhere long before us lay under a ceiling, stone wood, or even the curve of a cave, and listened to sounds of the night. They might not have had our words, our machines, our networks, but they had hearts beating in rhythm, lungs filling and emptying, eyes closing against darkness. In that way, they are not so different from us. And you tonight, by choosing to listen, are part of this continuity. You may not think of yourself as a keeper of history, but you are. Every listener island, every time you wonder, every time you breathe deeply into the mystery, you become part of a tradition older than writing the tradition of curiosity itself. If you are enjoying this slow walk through possibilities, if it feels like a gentle companion to your night or your morning, I would be grateful if you pressed the small symbols that keep this space alive. A like, a subscription, a share. Not because numbers matter in themselves, but because they extend the circle. They allow more people, perhaps people you will never meet, to find this quiet place and rest here for a while. Think of it less as a transaction, more as a gift. When you support, you are not only giving to me, you are leaving a small lantern along the path, so others who wander sleepless or curious might see the glow and follow it here. It is in a way just like the ancient practice of passing stories by firelight. One person tells another, listens, then carries it onward. Without that chain, myths and histories vanish. With it they endure, even if they change along the way. So when you press a button on your screen, remember you are holding a modern torch. You are helping keep the flame alight. But let's not hurry. Let's stay with you a little longer. Where is your body resting? Is your head tilted, supported by cushions? Are your hands still, or are your fingers absently tracing patterns on the sheet? If you are on a train or bus, perhaps the motion beneath you is rocking gently, a cradle of steel wheels. If you are lying down, perhaps you feel the pulse of your own heart against the mattress. These details matter, because when we speak of civilizations, we are really speaking of lives. And lives are built of moments like this, simple, fleeting, yet profound. Consider how easily such moments disappear from record. Archaeology can uncover temples, roads, statues, but it cannot fully capture what it felt like for a farmer in the Indus Valley to pause at dusk, his muscles sore, his breath slow. It cannot capture the comfort of a mother humming to her child in a house made of clay. It cannot capture the feeling of someone in ancient Mesopotamia leaning against a wall, eyes closed, hearing the wind in reeds. Those moments vanish into dust, and yet they were civilization every bit as much as laws and monuments. That is why tonight I invite you not just to think of civilizations as abstract entities, but as communities of people like you. People who laughed, who worried, who listened. People who asked questions in the dark. Questions like, will the rain come tomorrow? Will my children be safe? What lies beyond the horizon? Their questions are gone, their voices silent. But the shape of the wondering remains. It lives in you as you listen now. So breathe again, slow, steady. Inhale, exhale. Let yourself feel how even now this act of wondering connects you to a chain of countless others. You are not alone in curiosity. You never were. If this thought soothes you, let it linger. And if you wish to leave a trace, a small one, you can. A comment, perhaps, a line saying where you are or when you are listening. Imagine the map. It would create dots of light scattered across the globe, each one a listener pausing in the night to wonder about civilizations lost. Together those dots form their own community, not bound by walls or governments, but by shared curiosity. In its own way, that is civilization too, because civilization is not only the buildings we raise or the artifacts we leave behind. It is the way we gather around questions, the way we connect across distance. And tonight, by being here, by letting your thoughts meander slowly, you are participating in something much larger than yourself. So thank you. Thank you for listening, for wondering, for carrying this question with me. And thank you if you choose for supporting this space so that it continues. But even if you do nothing more than listen, even if you simply let these words flow through you as you drift into sleep, you are enough. Your presence here matters. Now, as we prepare to return to the wider story, hold on to this sense of connection. Feel the warmth of knowing that curiosity does not belong to you alone, but to humanity across ages. Imagine lost civilizations once lying awake with their own questions, and realize you are part of that same stream. The river of wonder flows on. And so we continue gently carrying both the vastness of deep time and the intimacy of this moment side by side. To think about lost civilizations, we must first learn to stretch our sense of time until it nearly breaks. Human history, the kind you learned in school, usually spans a few thousand years. We speak of the Sumerians, the Egyptians, the Greeks and Romans, and then perhaps a handful of centuries of more recent memory. But compared to the full age of Earth, this is the briefest flicker. It is like trying to judge the history of a vast library by glancing at a single page torn from the end of one book. Take a breath here. Let your body settle as your mind widens. Imagine a clock, but not the clock on your wall, or the one glowing faintly on your phone. Imagine a clock that ticks not in seconds, but in epochs. On this clock, each tick might last 1,000,000 years. Each rotation might carry us through entire ages of mountains rising and seas retreating. Against that backdrop, humanity's presence is less than a blink. The Earth is about 4.5 billion years old. That number is so large it almost resists imagination. Try this: compress the planet's history into a single calendar year. On the 1st of January, Earth forms molten and violent, slowly cooling. For months, nothing but chemistry and fire. Life appears in spring in the form of single-celled organisms drifting in ancient seas. Multicellular life arrives only in November. Dinosaurs rule in early December. They vanish by the 25th of December. And humans, our entire recorded history, fits into the last few minutes of the 31st of December, just before midnight. When you picture it that way, you feel the strangeness. All our wars, our inventions, our art, our empires, they occupy less time than the sparkle of a single firework. And the rest of the calendar, the long, silent expanse of days and weeks, is filled with stories we rarely think about. Whole ecosystems rose and fell. Whole continents drifted and collided. And within those enormous stretches of time, the possibility of forgotten civilizations cannot be dismissed easily. If they existed millions of years ago, there has been more than enough time for the Earth to erase them completely. Consider the forces at work. Plate tectonics drags the seafloor beneath continents, recycling crust into molten mantle. Erosion wears down even the tallest peaks. Rivers carve valleys, glaciers scour the land, deserts swallow stone. Given millions of years, nothing remains on the surface unchanged. A skyscraper left alone might last centuries, a pyramid millennia. But given 10 million years, 50 million, 100 million, they would be dust folded back into the geology of the planet. Pause for a breath again. Feel the weight of that realization. The Earth is not a museum carefully curating exhibits for us to admire. It is more like an artist always revising painting over its own canvas, blending old layers into new ones. And what is lost in that process may include not just species but stories. Stories of minds and cultures that once thrived, then faded. Think of the fossil record. Even for animals, preservation is rare. Most creatures that lived left no fossils at all. They died, decomposed, and vanished without trace. The few that did fossilize were lucky, buried quickly in just the right conditions, then discovered in the right time. Multiply that rarity when you consider civilizations. If a people built with wood or fiber, nothing would remain. If they lived near coasts, their land might now be underwater. If they existed tens of millions of years ago, their traces might lie deep beneath our reach, subducted into the Earth's mantle. This is why scientists sometimes whisper that absence of evidence is not always evidence of absence. It simply may mean the Earth has done its slow, efficient work of forgetting. Now let's imagine the span of time again, but this time let's walk it. Picture yourself stepping out into a vast desert at night. Each grain of sand represents a year. The desert stretches farther than your eyes can see. As you walk, you realize that the small patch of sand beneath your feet is all of recorded history. A handful of grains shimmering in the moonlight, and the rest, the endless dunes, represent everything before us. Layer upon layer of time, most of it silent, most of it hidden. Could civilizations have lived, built, and vanished somewhere in those dunes? The thought is humbling, almost dizzying. There is a comfort, too, in this vastness. Our anxieties, our deadlines, our worries about tomorrow, they shrink when placed against billions of years. Deep time reminds us that permanence is an illusion. The Earth has changed before, it will change again. Civilizations rise not because they are destined, but because conditions allow them. They fall not always because of failure, but because the world itself shifts. Let your breath slow. Inhale, exhale. Imagine yourself as part of this immense timeline, not separate from it. You are a brief spark, yes, but also a continuation of countless sparks before. Whether or not lost civilizations truly existed, the possibility of them stretches our minds. It forces us to remember that the world is older, stranger, and more patient than we usually admit. Myths across cultures reflect this instinct. Atlantis, Lemuria, sunken kingdoms, underground realms. They echo our awareness of deep time, our suspicion that much has been forgotten. They are not scientific records, but they carry a truth of feeling that human history is not the whole story, that what we know is a fragment. When you next look at a stone in the street or a mountain in the distance, remember these are not static objects. They are pages in Earth's book, written slowly, sometimes erased, sometimes rewritten. Our cities, too, will one day become pages pressed thin into the rock. And if another species comes long after us, they may find nothing of us but whispers. So here we rest at the edge of comprehension, gazing into deep time. It is not a place for certainty. It is a place for humility, a place to let wonder breathe. Tonight as you drift, remember this: you are lying not only in your bed, but on the surface of a planet that has carried countless secrets. Beneath you, layers of stone hold stories too old for us to read. Above you, the stars mark time even more vast. Between them, you exist, brief and luminous, part of a mystery that will never be fully solved. And that is enough. To understand how civilizations could vanish into dust, we need to look gently at the science of how the Earth keeps and loses its memories. Archaeology and geology are not only about discovering the past, they are about recognizing how fragile the record of the past truly island. Take a breath. Let your body soften. Imagine the ground beneath you, not just dirt, but layers upon layers of stories, each pressed flat into stone. Some stories remain, most are erased. To understand why, we must look at the natural processes that shape what is preserved and what disappears. One of the most important ideas is the archaeological record. It sounds solid, like a ledger of everything that has ever been, but in truth it is more like a handful of scattered notes torn from a library whose shelves are constantly burning and rebuilding. The record is selective. It shows us what conditions allow, not what truly happened in full. Think first of organic material: wood, leather, cloth, bone. All of these decay quickly when exposed to air, moisture, or microbes. Unless they are sealed in very specific conditions, frozen in ice, buried in dry deserts, locked away in peat bogs, they vanish within decades or centuries. If an ancient civilization built primarily from wood and fiber, most of their world would already be gone. Now think of metal. We imagine swords and coins surviving forever, but even these dissolve. Iron rusts, copper tarnishes, bronze corrodes. Given enough time, even the hardest alloys break down into oxides and dust. Only gold, chemically stubborn, resists decay for long spans. But even gold can be melted, reshaped, lost again. Stone seems eternal, yet even stone wears away. Sandstone crumbles, limestone dissolves in rain, granite splits with frost. A monument might last 1,000 years, 10,000, maybe more, but the earth measures in millions. 1,000,000 years of storms, earthquakes, and shifting ground will erase even the mightiest of pyramids. Pause. Let this sink in. Feel the pillow under your head, the air moving in and out. Just as your breath rises and falls, so too does the surface of the planet. It is not fixed. It is alive with motion, slow but relentless. Geologists speak of plate tectonics, the great conveyor belts of the Earth's crust. Ocean floors spread at ridges, then sink back into the mantle at subduction zones. Continents drift like rafts on molten rock, colliding, separating, reshaping coastlines. Anything built upon those plates rides with them, destined eventually to be crushed, buried, or recycled into magma. Erosion is another relentless force. Rain carves valleys, rivers, shift courses, glaciers scrape entire landscapes clean. Wind carries grains of sand that sandblast stone over millennia. Given time, even mountains are ground down to plains. So too with cities. What feels permanent to us is temporary to geology. Consider also the narrowness of fossilization. Most living things decompose without a trace. To become a fossil requires a precise sequence, rapid burial, mineral replacement, protection from erosion. Without those conditions, the remains vanish. That is why the fossil record is so patchy. It is not that life was scarce, but that preservation is rare. Now apply this to civilizations. To survive millions of years, artifacts would need equally rare conditions. They would need to be buried quickly, protected deeply, and discovered before they were destroyed again. The odds are slim. That is why some scientists say we might not recognize the traces of an ancient civilization even if they once existed. The Earth is simply too efficient at recycling. Pause for another breath. Feel the rhythm of this truth. Everything changes. Everything returns. Civilizations like shells on a beach are broken down by waves of time. There are also chemical traces to consider. Even when objects vanish, their activity may leave fingerprints in soil or stone. Agriculture changes nitrogen levels. Mining leaves unusual concentrations of metals. Industry alters carbon isotopes in the atmosphere. These signals can last far longer than the structures themselves. Modern scientists call this the geological signature of human activity. One day long after we are gone, future beings, whoever or whatever they are, might find our layer in the rocks marked by plastic residues, concrete fragments, radioactive isotopes. This leads to the haunting question: if we can imagine our own geological signature, could there be others hidden deeper in time? Could layers of stone already hold faint anomalies that once belonged to civilizations now forgotten? If so, would we recognize them? Or would we mistake them for natural oddities? Think of coal seams, for example. They are the compressed remains of ancient forests. What if hidden within there were patterns not of trees but of activity? Could we tell the difference? Or consider sudden spikes in carbon levels in ancient sediments. We often attribute them to volcanic events, but could some belong to industrial ages not our own? These are not claims-only questions. Questions that remind us how narrow our vision may be. Pause again. Let your body rest. Imagine you are holding a stone in your hand. At first glance, it seems ordinary. but within it might be locked millions of years of history, heat, pressure, life, death. We rarely think about this because the stone does not tell its story easily, and so it may be with civilizations. Their stories too may be compressed, hidden, erased. The science reminds us, absence is not certainty, silence is not proof. What we have is a fragment, and from that fragment we build narratives. But the earth is older than our narratives, and it has erased more than we will ever know. And so when we ask whether civilizations have come before us, science answers not with a firm yes or no, but with a sigh, perhaps, perhaps not. What we know for sure is how easily traces are lost, how completely the planet renews itself. That humility is the foundation of our wonder. Science shows us how fragile the Earth's memory island. But human imagination has always tried to fill those gaps with stories. When stone forgets, myth remembers. When soil erases, legend whispers. Tonight let us wander slowly into those whispers, not to treat them as proof, but as reflections of how deeply we have always sensed the possibility of civilizations before our own. Take a breath. Let your shoulders relax. Imagine yourself sitting by a fire long ago, when the night was darker and the stars seemed nearer. Around you voices weave tales. They are not lectures, they are lullabies, warnings, and wonders. These stories have survived for thousands of years, traveling mouth to mouth, heart to heart, until they reach us now. The most famous, perhaps, is Atlantis. Plato wrote of it as a mighty island kingdom, rich in power and knowledge, which fell into the sea in a single terrible day and night. For centuries, people have searched for it in the Mediterranean, in the Atlantic, even under Antarctic ice. We have found no city, no definitive ruins. Yet the story endures not because it is proven, but because it feels like an echo of something we cannot quite remember. An intuition that great things can vanish suddenly, leaving only ripples. In India, there are tales of Lemuria, or as some call it, Kumari Kandam, a vast lost land south of the subcontinent swallowed by the sea. It is said to have been the cradle of culture where early Tamil civilization thrived before floods claimed it. Again, no maps show it, no archaeology confirms it, yet the persistence of the tale suggests a deep cultural memory of land lost to water, of beginnings forgotten. In Buddhist and Hindu traditions there is Shambhala, a hidden kingdom in the Himalayas veiled from ordinary sight. Not lost beneath the sea, but tucked away in secret valleys, it is said to be a place of peace and wisdom, awaiting the right time to reveal itself again. Whether metaphor or memory, it speaks of the human sense that there is more to the earth than meets the eye, that civilizations might continue in places unseen. And then there is the Agartha legend. Vast realms within the earth itself, cities glowing beneath mountains, tunnels stretching like veins across continents. To modern ears it sounds like fantasy, yet the very idea reflects our awareness that the surface we walk on is only a thin layer above hidden depths. If civilizations could vanish, where would they go? Downward, perhaps into the folds of stone? Pause here. Close your eyes if you like. Picture these myths not as literal maps but as mirrors. They reflect our fear of loss, our awe at nature's power, our longing for continuity. They remind us that every culture in its own way has imagined civilizations older than itself. Atlantis, Lemuria, Shambhala, Agartha. They may be inventions, but they may also be metaphors for truths we cannot otherwise express. Consider floods. Nearly every tradition carries a story of a great flood that wiped away what came before. The Epic of Gilgamesh, the story of Noah, the tales of Manu in India, the myths of the Maya and the Aztec, all speak of waters rising, of worlds ending, of new beginnings. Did all these peoples invent the same story separately, or were they all remembering in their own way the trauma of civilizations washed away? Whether by local disasters or global cataclysms, the pattern is the same. Something was lost and only fragments remain. Breathe slowly. Let the rhythm of your body match the rhythm of these ancient tales. Notice how myths do not rush. They linger, circle, repeat. They are like dreams, half true, half imagined, yet entirely real in the feelings they evoke. Even closer to our time, legends of vanished peoples surround us. the Anasazi of the American Southwest, whose cliff dwellings stand empty, the Olmec, whose giant stone heads gaze silently into space, the Dogon of Mali, with astronomical knowledge that still puzzles scholars. These are not myths, these are real cultures, yet the line between legend and archaeology blurs because so much of their story remains mysterious. This is the role of myth, to carry memory where evidence cannot. To suggest that what is gone is not entirely gone, that echoes remain. And when we listen to these echoes, we sense the possibility of civilizations deeper, still hidden not just in time but in imagination. Pause again. Feel the quiet in the room around you. The myths we speak of are not here to be solved like riddles. They are here to soothe, to widen, to remind us that forgetting is part of the human condition. When we dream of Atlantis or whisper of Shambhala, we are not only telling stories about the past, we are also expressing our fear of our own fragility. If mighty kingdoms can vanish without a trace, so too can ours. But there is comfort in this too. Myth teaches that loss is not the end. From every flood comes renewal. From every fall, a rebirth. Civilizations may sink, but the stories float. And in those stories we find a strange kind of immortality. So tonight, as you rest, let the myths drift through you like gentle tides. They are not facts to memorize. They are lullabies of the human spirit. They remind us that we are not the first to wonder, not the first to fear, not the first to dream. Others have come before us, whether in stone or in story, and their voices still murmur in the dark. And that murmur is enough to carry us onward. We have wandered through myths, through the whispers of Atlantis and Shambhala. But now let us place our feet more firmly on the ground of science, to look at what the Earth itself has revealed in recent centuries. These are not proofs of lost civilizations millions of years old. They are not answers to the central question, but they are reminders of how surprising the archaeological record can be, how often it shows us complexity where we expected simplicity, how often it forces us to widen our view of what civilization means. Take a slow breath. Imagine the sound of soil being brushed away by careful hands. A trowel, a brush, a fragment of stone being revealed after thousands of years. Each discovery is like a small light switching on in a vast darkness. And some lights are brighter than others. One such light is Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey. For decades, archaeologists assumed that complex structures, temples, monuments, carved stones came only after the invention of agriculture. Farming, it was believed, allowed people to settle into villages, grow into cities, and eventually build. But Göbekli Tepe disrupted that tidy story. Here on a hill lie massive stone pillars arranged in circles, some weighing tons, many carved with animals and symbols. The site is more than 11,000 years old, older than Stonehenge, older than the pyramids, and it appears to have been built by hunter-gatherers, people we thought were too simple, too transient to construct such things. The discovery forced archaeologists to rethink the sequence of history. Maybe people gathered to build first and farming came later. Maybe memory and ritual were as powerful as survival. Pause and picture it. Thousands of years before written language, before cities, people stood together under the open sky, dragging stone pillars, arranging them into sacred shapes. We do not know exactly why. Was it worship? Was it gathering? Was it memory? Whatever the answer, it shows us that complexity arises earlier than we thought, and it reminds us that what we call civilization may not always follow the neat path we expect. Another case, Mohenjo-Daro, part of the Indus Valley Civilization. Its ruins discovered in the 1,920 seconds revealed streets laid out in grids, advanced drainage systems, standardized bricks. The city flourished more than 4,000 years ago. But unlike Egypt or Mesopotamia, it left no grand tombs, no monuments to kings. Its script remains undeciphered. We know it was complex, but we do not know its stories. It slipped from memory until rediscovered, a reminder that entire civilizations can vanish almost completely, their voices locked away in unreadable marks on clay. Now consider Nabta Playa, deep in the Egyptian desert. Here, 5,000 to 6,000 years ago, people arranged stones in patterns that may align with stars. Long before the pyramids, there was already a tradition of astronomical observation of linking earth and sky. These were not isolated villages without curiosity. They were people watching the heavens, recording patterns, leaving behind clues we still strive to interpret. Even in Europe, where history is often told as continuous, there are mysteries. Think of the megalithic sites, stone circles, passage, graves, dolmens. Thousands of them dot the landscape, older than written records, their purposes still debated. Were they calendars, temples, burial sites? Their builders are mostly nameless, their stories forgotten, yet their stones remain heavy and patient. Pause again. Let your breath slow. These examples remind us that what survives is often fragmentary. We see the stones, but not the ceremonies. We see the drains, but not the daily laughter of children running through the streets. We see patterns, but not the meanings. And yet, from these fragments, we reconstruct entire civilizations. And here is the gentle warning science offers: if such large and relatively recent cultures can nearly vanish from memory, what of those much older? If the Indus Valley can slip into silence in just a few thousand years, what might millions of the years erase? Consider also the Nazca lines in Peru, gigantic geoglyphs etched into desert soil, visible only from the air, created between 500 BCE and 500 CE. For centuries their purpose was unknown. Only with aerial photography did we begin to see the shapes clearly: hummingbirds, monkeys, trapezoids stretching across kilometers. A civilization capable of such design left almost nothing else for us to read. Their houses of wood and fiber are gone. Their voices are gone. Only the lines remain fragile as threads. In the Pacific, entire cultures flourished on islands, building stone statues, carving canoes, navigating vast distances by stars. The Rapa Nui of Easter Island are remembered mostly for their moai statues, great heads staring across fields. But the society that built them was complex, resilient, and then fragile. Deforestation, conflict, or outside influence, whatever the cause, much of their story is lost. Imagine how much more could be lost if time stretched, not hundreds but millions of years. And then there are the outliers, the puzzles that spark debate. Strange artifacts found in mines or stone layers, often explained as natural, sometimes whispered about as evidence of deeper histories. A gear-shaped inclusion in coal, a metallic sphere in ancient rock. Science usually finds mundane explanations, but the fascination persists because we know how incomplete our record island. The imagination leaps into the gaps. What these case studies show us is not that lost civilizations millions of years old definitely existed. They show us that we cannot assume simplicity just because evidence is scarce. Complexity has emerged earlier than expected, in stranger places than expected, and has vanished more completely than expected. Each discovery humbles us, reminding us that our story is not the whole story. Take another breath. Let this awareness soothe rather than unsettle. You do not need to solve the mysteries tonight. It is enough to know that the earth is full of surprises, that what we call civilization is fragile, and that traces of the past, whether in Turkey, in India, in Peru, or beneath deserts and seas, remind us how easily stories slip away. So when we ask about civilizations before our own, we are not chasing fantasies. We are continuing a pattern, finding fragments, expanding our imagination, and accepting that much has been lost. Science gives us the tools. Myth gives us the language. Together they point us toward humility and toward wonder. Science can show us stones, layers, and artifacts. Myths can give us stories, warnings, and dreams. But at some point we arrive at the heart of the question, not only what happened, but what it means. The possibility of civilizations lost in dust is not simply an archaeological puzzle. It is also a mirror we hold up to ourselves, a way of asking, who are we really, and how long will our story last? Take a breath with me. Let your shoulders drop. Imagine the room you are in right now, not as a fixed shelter, but as a temporary stage set. One day, perhaps far in the future, the walls will crumble, the objects will vanish, and only silence will remain. And yet, while you are here, it feels solid, important, even eternal. That is how civilizations see themselves too. Every empire believes its story will endure. Every culture believes it is the center. And yet all are eventually folded into the soil. This is where philosophy enters. If civilizations rise and fall, if even their grandest monuments turn to dust, what should we value? Do we cling to permanence, building higher, stronger, louder, or do we accept impermanence and turn our attention to the beauty of the fleeting moment? Consider the idea of impermanence in Eastern philosophy. In Buddhism, everything is transient. Nothing, not even gods, lasts forever. To cling to permanence is to invite suffering. If we apply that lens, then the thought of lost civilizations is not tragic. It is natural. They rose, they fell, they passed into silence, as we too will one day. In that view, the fragility of civilizations is a lesson in humility and acceptance. But Western philosophy sometimes takes another path. Think of the Greek idea of kleos glory, the attempt to be remembered forever. Achilles chose a short life with eternal fame over a long life without memory. Perhaps civilizations too are like Achilles. They rise brilliantly burning fast, leaving behind ruins that whisper across time. They do not endure in body, but in story. Even if the story is only a fragment, it still reaches us. Pause here. Feel the tension between these two views. On one hand, impermanence as comfort. On the other, impermanence as challenge to leave a mark. Which feels closer to your heart tonight? Now imagine yourself, not as an individual, but as a member of a species. Humanity has built skyscrapers, split atoms, walked on the moon. We like to believe we are unique. But what if we are only one chapter among many? If others came before us and others will come after, then we are not the pinnacle. We are simply part of a longer rhythm of rise and fall. Is that thought frightening, perhaps? It suggests our story is not the whole story. It suggests that our triumphs may fade, but it can also be freeing. If we are not the center, then we are not the sole bearers of meaning. Meaning is woven through the whole fabric of Earth's history, not only our brief thread. Think of the night sky. The stars you see are only a fraction of the stars that exist. Many have burned out already. Their light just hasn't reached us yet. Others are being born hidden in clouds of dust. Our civilization is like one of those stars, bright for a while, then fading. But the sky is never empty. The pattern continues. Take another breath. Inhale. Exhale. Let your mind rest on this image. Civilizations as stars countless, some seen, some unseen, each contributing to the vast tapestry. Whether or not we ever prove the existence of civilizations before us, the possibility alone teaches us humility. It tells us not to mistake our brief moment for eternity. There is also the question of identity. If we are temporary, what makes us meaningful? Some say meaning comes from duration, that the longer something lasts, the more important it island. But others say meaning comes from intensity, from presence. A single song played once and fading into silence can still move us to tears. A flower that blooms for only a day can still be beautiful. Why not civilizations too? Perhaps the lesson is this value does not depend on forever. It depends on the depth of being, the richness of experience, the way it touches others. If lost civilizations existed, their beauty is not lessened by their disappearance. If they are gone without trace, they still mattered while they lived. And if one day we too are gone, we too will have mattered in our time. Philosophy also asks, what do we owe the future? If civilizations vanish, should we still try to preserve? Should we carve our names into stone, launch messages into space, archive our knowledge in digital vaults? Or should we accept that erasure is inevitable and instead focus on living well? Now, there is no single answer. Perhaps both are true. We build in hope, but we live in awareness. Pause again. Notice your breath. Notice the quiet. These questions do not demand urgency. They are companions, not tasks. Even the act of wondering tonight has meaning. As you listen, you are engaging in philosophy, not in the classroom sense, but in the human sense. You are joining a conversation, older than writing the conversation, about who we are, why we are here, and what it means to be temporary. Civilizations have asked this before. Civilizations will ask it again. And in that continuity there is comfort. So let us rest with this reflection. If civilizations before us turned to dust, then dust itself is not the end. Dust is the soil of new beginnings. Dust is the canvas on which new lives are painted. Dust is not silence. It is transition. We too will return to dust. But in doing so, we will join the great cycle of Earth, feeding what comes after. And that perhaps is the deepest philosophical gift of the idea of lost civilizations. It reminds us that endings are not failures. They are part of the larger story, a story written not in permanence but in renewal. We have spoken of myths of science, of civilizations that might have risen and fallen before our own. But now let us step closer, closer than ruins, closer than history, closer even than philosophy. Let us return to something small, something personal, because the vastness of deep time can feel overwhelming. To anchor ourselves, we need to feel the present moment, the ordinary, the intimate. So pause with me. Notice the air in your room. Is it cool, brushing your skin lightly, or is it warm, wrapping you in a soft blanket of heat? Notice the sounds around you. Perhaps the hum of a fan, the faint tick of a clock, the distant bark of a dog, the rhythm of your own breath. These sounds are not monuments. They are not carved in stone, and yet they are the music of your civilization right now in this moment. Close your eyes if you like. Think of a time when you felt very small yet very alive. Maybe you were standing under the night sky, where stars stretched endlessly and you realized how brief your life is compared to theirs. Maybe you were walking in the rain watching droplets race down glass and you felt both alone and connected. Or maybe it was something even smaller, the sound of your refrigerator humming in the kitchen, the comfort of a warm cup in your hands, the way light shifted across your floor in the late afternoon. These tiny moments are threads of your story. They will not be remembered by history books. They will not survive in ruins. And yet they are real, vivid, precious. Civilizations too are made of such moments. Behind every pyramid, every road, every artifact, there were nights when someone simply sat quietly listening to wind in the trees. Behind every temple, there were children laughing, parents worrying, elders dozing in the shade. When we think of lost civilizations, it is tempting to imagine only their monuments. But perhaps their truest essence was in these small, personal reflections. A mother humming to her child, a fisherman mending his net, a farmer looking at the horizon wondering about rain. We do not know their names, we do not know their words, but in their ordinariness they were human, or whatever form of intelligence they might have been, and that humanity or that sentience connects us across time. Pause, breathe slowly, feel your own body, your chest, rising and falling, your pulse in your wrist, your weight on the bed or chair. In this simple awareness, you are closer to those forgotten people than to their monuments. Because monuments crumble, but breath is eternal. It has passed through every being that has ever lived. It passes through you now. Think of a quiet evening in your own life. Perhaps you were a child lying awake listening to the hum of summer insects outside the window. Perhaps you were older, standing at a bus stop at dusk, watching headlights blur in the rain. Perhaps you were on a train half asleep, rocked gently by motion. These moments belong only to you, yet they echo across all time. Imagine someone thousands of years ago in another place, in another culture, feeling something similar. The same hum of insects, the same blur of rain, the same rocking motion of travel. Different lives, same sensations. This is why the question of forgotten civilizations touches us so deeply. It is not only about whether they built machines or cities, it is about whether they too felt what we feel. Did they look at the moon and wonder? Did they feel the ache of loss? Did they find comfort in each other's voices? Take another breath. Inhale slowly. Exhale gently. Let yourself remember a moment of quiet joy. The smell of bread baking. The warmth of sunlight on your skin. The first sip of water when you were thirsty. These are not grand, but they are real, and they are the same kinds of moments that made up the lives of every civilization before us. So tonight, as you listen, let your own memories rise and fall, like waves. Do not cling to them, just let them pass. Each is a reminder that what matters is not only what survives in stone, but what is lived in breath. Civilizations may vanish, but their people once had evenings like yours. Evenings filled with sound, scent, touch, thought. The details are gone, but the pattern endures. And here is a softer reflection: one day we too will be forgotten. Our names may vanish, our buildings may crumble, our technologies may dissolve. But does that make our moments less meaningful, or does it make them more? To live knowing it will not last is to live with full presence. To savor the warmth of tea, the laughter of a friend, the silence of a room at night. These are not diminished by impermanence. They are made beautiful by it. So let this be your reflection tonight. Civilizations may come and go, but the essence of living is in small, fleeting moments. Your breath, your body at rest, your memory of rain or light or laughter. These connect you across time with all who came before, whether remembered or forgotten. Rest in that thought. Rest in the knowledge that your life in its ordinariness is as rich as any empire. And as you drift towards sleep, let this reflection comfort you. You are part of the story, and the story is written not only in monuments but in whispers, in sighs, in the quiet rhythm of being alive. Up to now, we have wandered through myths and science, through whispers of forgotten worlds, and through the quiet possibility that civilizations may have come before us. But fairness asks us to pause to consider the other side. For every mystery there is also a careful voice of reason, a voice that says, perhaps we are searching in shadows where there is nothing to be found. Take a slow breath. Let your chest rise and fall. Imagine a quiet room where two people sit across from each other. One leans forward, speaking of lost cities buried in stone. The other leans back calmly, shaking their head. Not to argue, not to dismiss rudely, but to offer balance. Tonight we will listen to that second voice. The first counterargument is simple: there is no evidence. For all the stories of Atlantis, for all the speculations of ancient civilizations, science has not uncovered ruins older than the known timeline of humanity. No cities buried beneath dinosaur bones, no machines pressed into Paleozoic rock. Archaeology, geology, paleontology, all have searched for centuries, and though they find wonders, they do not find proof of forgotten empires millions of years old. Absence, they say, may not always be proof of absence, but it is still meaningful. Another counter-argument rests in the timeline of evolution. According to everything we know, complex intelligence is rare. Life on Earth spent billions of years as single-celled organisms. Multicellular life is recent compared to the age of the planet. The emergence of large brains, capable of abstract thought and technology, is rarer still. Some scientists argue that if intelligent civilizations had arisen earlier, evolution would look different today. We would see other lineages of tool-making species or more obvious anomalies in the fossil record. Instead, we see continuity. We see animals rising and falling according to natural patterns without signs of cities or machines shaping the course. Pause here. Breathe gently. This does not erase the wonder of the question. It only reminds us that science builds its confidence on evidence, not possibility. Skeptics also point to the uniformity of geology. When we look at Earth's layers, we see clear markers of great events: asteroid impacts, volcanic winters, mass extinctions. Each leaves distinct chemical signatures: spikes of iridium, layers of ash, sudden changes in carbon isotopes. If an industrial civilization had burned fuels or spread metals across the globe, skeptics say the signs would be equally visible. And yet in the layers we have studied, we see no such fingerprints before the age of humans. Another voice of caution reminds us about the allure of imagination. Humans love stories. We are drawn to mysteries, to the romance of hidden kingdoms, to the drama of forgotten empires. The idea that we might not be the first appeals to us because it humbles and excites at once. But desire is not proof. The mind can invent patterns where none exist, just as we see shapes in clouds or hear voices in the wind. Skeptics ask us, are we seeing echoes of real civilizations, or are we projecting our longing for mystery onto the silence of the earth? Pause again. Notice how your breath steadies when you consider this question. Skepticism is not a harsh voice, it is a calming one. It reminds us not to rush into conclusions, to hold possibility gently but not tightly. There is also the argument of scale. Civilizations, as we know them, require infrastructure, agriculture, roads, networks of trade, concentrations of population. Such infrastructure leaves lasting marks, altered soils, modified landscapes, new species of plants and animals shaped by human use. If earlier civilizations had existed, skeptics argue their ecological fingerprints would still be visible, just as our fingerprints will be visible millions of years from now in plastics, fossil fuels, and altered biodiversity. The fact that we do not see such changes in earlier layers suggests that no civilization like ours came before, yet even as skeptics speak, they do not always dismiss curiosity. Many acknowledge that science itself thrives on questioning, but they urge us to keep a distinction between questions and conclusions. It is good to wonder, they say. It is less wise to assert without evidence. And so tonight we honor that voice. We remember that possibility is not certainty. We remember that our longing for mystery can sometimes lead us astray. And we remember that science, patient and cautious, has so far found no sign of civilizations before our own. But does that silence close the question? Not entirely. Even skeptics admit that we have studied only a fraction of Earth's crust, only a small portion of the deep sea, only thin slices of time. They remind us that absence is meaningful, yes, but also that science itself is always provisional. New evidence can always emerge. So as you rest tonight, let these counter-arguments soothe rather than trouble you. They do not demand that you stop wondering. They only invite you to wonder responsibly, to balance imagination with patience, to hold both the dream of lost civilizations and the calm acceptance that perhaps we are indeed the first. Take another breath. Inhale slowly, exhale gently. Let the voices of skepticism rest beside the voices of myth. Neither needs to win tonight. Both are part of the conversation, part of the rhythm of human thought. And as you drift deeper into this story, remember, balance is beautiful. Certainty is not required. The value lies in the gentle holding of both sides, like two stones in your hand, cool and smooth, weighty yet comforting. Let us set aside facts and arguments for a while. Tonight let us walk together into imagination, into a scene that may never have happened yet, feels real the moment we picture it. Because sometimes, to explore possibilities, we must build a world inside our minds and wander gently through it. Close your eyes if that feels comfortable. Take a slow breath in. Let it out. Feel the quiet around you. Now, imagine yourself standing at the edge of a desert. The horizon stretches wide, pale gold under a sky that seems to shimmer with heat. Wind moves across the sand, carrying fine grains that sting softly against your skin. All is quiet, except for the hiss of air over dunes. As you look down, your feet sink slightly into the sand, but the sand here hides something, a shape, a line. You brush the surface with your hand, and a smooth edge appears, not natural, but carved. A fragment of stone half buried. You push aside, more sand and more edges reveal themselves, blocks once fitted together, now broken, scattered. The desert has hidden a city. You take a step forward. The sand shifts, sliding down into a hollow. Below you glimpse the outline of streets, faint but unmistakable. The pattern is too precise, too deliberate. You descend carefully, your steps echoing in the silence, until you find yourself standing among ruins. Breathe in again. The air smells dry, tinged with dust with age. You place your hand on a wall. It is warm from the sun, yet it hums faintly with memory, as if it remembers voices, footsteps, laughter. You close your eyes, and for a moment the silence fills with echoes. Imagine the city as it once was. The streets alive with people, voices rising in languages we no longer know. Market stalls lined with goods, baskets of fruit pottery painted with symbols, woven cloth shimmering in the light. Children running between columns, their laughter carried on the same breeze that now only shifts sand. Builders at work shaping stone with tools whose marks still faintly score the walls. Elders seated in shade telling stories of gods or ancestors' stories now lost to the wind. Pause here. Let yourself see them. Not as ghosts, not as myths, but as people. Breathing, eating, loving, worrying. People whose lives were as vivid to them as ours are to us. The city rises in your imagination. Towers of stone. Not grand like modern skyscrapers, but sturdy, deliberate, shaped with care. Temples adorned with carvings of animals, stars, spirals, whose meaning we cannot decipher. Pathways lined with fire bowls, their smoke curling upward as offerings. And above it all, the sky, the same sky we see tonight dotted with stars. They too once traced into patterns, into myths, into calendars. Now imagine walking further. You pass under an archway. Your fingers trace symbols carved into its side. They feel familiar in rhythm, though you cannot read them. They speak of knowledge carried carefully past, from generation to generation. Knowledge now dissolved like ink in water. You step into a courtyard. Water once filled the basin here, cool and refreshing, but now only sand lies in its place. You hear the faintest sound of water trickling, though it is only your mind supplying memory. Pause. Notice how your body feels in this imagined place. Maybe a slight shiver, as if sensing something both familiar and strange. Maybe a warmth, the comfort of knowing that to imagine is to connect. You sit on a stone once part of a bench or wall. The surface is smooth worn by countless hands before yours. You let your mind drift. You picture a family gathered here at dusk. They share food, they laugh, they look toward the horizon where the sun sinks red. For them, this moment is ordinary. For us, it is unreachable. And yet by imagining we bring it back, if only for a breath. What happened to this city? Perhaps a flood, the river rising and sweeping it away. Perhaps drought, the wells running dry, forcing people to leave. Perhaps fire or conflict or simply the slow erosion of time. The reasons vanish into silence. But what remains is the reminder civilizations are fragile, even the ones that feel eternal while they live. Breathe again. Inhale slowly. Exhale gently. Let the scene linger. Now step back. The city fades, the sand returns, the ruins sink once more beneath the desert. You stand again on the surface alone, the wind tugging at your clothes, the horizon stretching endlessly. Did the city truly exist, or did we conjure it from our longing? It does not matter. The act of imagining itself has meaning, because imagination is not fantasy, it is a bridge, a way of feeling the weight of possibility, a way of understanding that behind every ruin we find, there may be countless others, erased so fully that only in dreams can we visit them. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, let this imagined scene rest in you. A city in the sand alive, once silent now. Its people forgotten, its stories dissolved, and yet for a moment you walked among them. For a moment you remembered what the earth has forgotten, and that is enough. When words and evidence begin to fade, sometimes what remains is metaphor, a way of holding truth, not with the grip of certainty, but with the softness of imagery. Metaphors are like lanterns, they do not illuminate every detail, but they cast enough glow to guide our steps. Tonight let us rest in one such lantern. Take a slow breath. Inhale, exhale. Imagine the earth as a palimpsest, an ancient manuscript written on parchment. In old times, when materials were scarce, scribes would scrape away ink from a page and write again. Faint traces of the earlier text might remain beneath the new words, but the meaning would be blurred, overlapping, nearly erased. The earth is like that. Each civilization, each ecosystem, each age writes its story across the surface. Then time scrapes it away, and another story begins. What we read now, the monuments, the myths, the fossils, are only the faintest echoes of earlier layers. This metaphor explains why civilizations, if they existed long before us, may be invisible. Their ink has been scraped away. Their letters are hidden under newer writing. What we see are not full sentences, but ghostly marks that make us wonder, was there once a story here? Pause with this image. Picture yourself holding an old manuscript. You see fresh ink, dark and bold. But tilt the page toward the light, and faint lines appear beneath whispers of words someone else once wrote. You cannot read them fully, but you know they are there. The earth is that manuscript. We live in the bold, fresh ink, but beneath us may lie whispers of words written long ago. Another metaphor, the earth as an ocean of memory. Imagine dropping a pebble into still water. Ripples spread outward, then fade. Drop another pebble later, and its ripples overlap, erasing the memory of the first. Civilizations are pebbles. Their ripples spread across time, roads, songs, artifacts, but eventually the surface smooths again. From above looking down, you cannot tell how many pebbles were ever dropped. All you see is calm water hiding the history of movement. This too is why absence of evidence is not proof of absence. The water looks still, but many stones have fallen. Pause again. Let your breath mirror the image of ripples. Inhale, the ripple widens. Exhale, the ripple fades. And now a third metaphor, the earth, as a garden constantly replanted. Imagine a field tilled every season. Seeds are sown, plants grow, they flower, they wither, and the soil is turned again. What remains of the last harvest? Perhaps a few seeds, a faint scent, nutrients in the soil. But the plants themselves are gone, replaced by new life. Civilizations too may be crops in this endless garden. They grow, they flourish, they fade, and the soil of their memory nourishes what comes after, though the plants themselves vanish. This metaphor carries explanation as well as comfort. It tells us why civilizations may disappear without trace. Because their existence is not wasted, it becomes part of the ground feeding the next. We are perhaps nourished by civilizations before us, even if we cannot name them. Take another breath. Inhale deeply. Exhale softly. Let these metaphors settle like gentle stones in your mind. But let us not stop with imagery. Let us link metaphor with science, explanation with poetry. The palimpsest aligns with geology, layers of rock written and rewritten, older texts scraped away by plate tectonics, erosion, subduction. The ocean of memory reflects climate cycles and extinctions, each wave wiping clean the surface. The garden resonates with biology, life rising, falling, leaving nutrients for the next chapter. Metaphor and science hand in hand, telling the same story in different tongues. And what does this mean for us? It means we should not cling to permanence as proof of meaning. Just because a story is erased does not mean it was never real. Just because a city leaves no ruins does not mean it was never alive. Meaning is not only in what endures, but in what nourishes the future, even unseen. Pause once more. Look around your own room. Objects you hold dear, books, photos, devices, may one day vanish. Yet the way they shaped your thoughts, your emotions, your connections will ripple outward. They will become part of others, and then of others still. Civilization works the same way. Its monuments may vanish, but its influence continues like compost in soil, invisible but essential, and so metaphors bring us peace. The palimpsest tells us the earth is layered. The ocean tells us the earth forgets. The garden tells us the earth renews. Together they remind us that civilizations may be forgotten in form, but remembered in essence. As you drift tonight, let these images accompany you. Picture yourself as both reader and scribe of the palimpsest, both stone and ripple in the ocean, both plant and soil in the garden. You are temporary, yes, but you are also part of something continuous, something vast, something that writes and rewrites itself forever. And in that there is comfort. We have already imagined walking through the ruins of a forgotten city, brushing sand from ancient stones. But now let us turn the mirror around. Instead of imagining civilizations before us, let us imagine ourselves as the lost ones. Let us picture the future, when our cities, our machines, our monuments are no more. Close your eyes if you wish. Take a slow, deep breath. Exhale gently. Now see yourself standing not in the present but far, far ahead. Tens of thousands, perhaps millions of years into the future. The world is familiar yet strange. The air smells clean, touched with the scent of wild growth. The sky is the same, vast and blue, but the shapes of continents have shifted, coastlines redrawn by oceans and tectonic drift. Where once stood our skyscrapers, forests rise again. Trees push through the cracks of what used to be asphalt, their roots winding around buried steel. Birds nest in the frames of collapsed towers, their songs filling spaces once filled with the hum of traffic. Rivers carve new paths through the foundations of cities, carrying fragments of concrete downstream like pebbles. Pause here. Feel the quiet of this future. No cars, no voices. Only the sounds of wind-water birds and insects. The earth has taken back what we built. Now imagine a being, maybe human, maybe something that has evolved long after us, wandering through these landscapes. They stumble upon fragments of our world, a shard of glass clouded and weathered, a piece of plastic warped by time, a crumbling wall with faint paint colours barely visible. To them these are mysteries. Were they natural? Were they made? What stories do they hold? The being lifts a piece of metal pitted with rust. They turn it in their hands, wondering. Perhaps it was a tool. Perhaps it was nothing more than stone shaped by accident. They cannot know. Our technologies, our languages, our names have vanished. To them we are whispers. Pause again. Notice the feeling this brings. A mix of sadness, humility, and wonder. Now imagine these beings telling stories about us. Around their fires or in their circles they speak of a people who might once have covered the earth. They invent myths about us, just as we invented myths about Atlantis. They imagine us as gods, or as giants, or as foolish beings who built too much and vanished. They cannot prove we existed, but they sense that the world once held something more. In this mirror we become the myth. We are the Atlantis of the future. Our skyscrapers are their sunken temples. Our satellites are their forgotten stars. Our voices are gone, but the echo of our presence lingers, faint but undeniable. Breathe deeply. Let the image settle. There is a kind of justice in this reversal. We look for civilizations before us, but one day others may look for us. We search for evidence in stone and soil, but one day others will search for our traces in the same way. We may wonder if Atlantis existed, and one day others may wonder if New York or Tokyo or Cairo ever truly stood. And so this imagined scene is not just fantasy. It is a way of reflecting on our own impermanence. We think we are solid, that our buildings will endure. But time is patient. Time erases everything. The ruins of our world will be as mysterious to the future as ancient ruins are to us. Pause once more. Picture your own room in this imagined future. The bed gone, the walls collapsed, but perhaps a single object, small, ordinary remains. A mug, a button, a scrap of fabric fossilized in clay. Someone finds it. They hold it puzzled. They wonder about you just as we wonder about those before us. This is the gentle lesson of the mirror. We are not outside the cycle. We are inside it. Just as we search, others will search for us. Just as we wonder, others will wonder about us. And just as we invent myths about the past, myths will one day be invented about us. Let that thought be soothing. It means that even when we are gone, our presence will ripple outward, transformed into story. It means that our fragility is not failure. It is participation in the endless rhythm of rise, fall, and memory. So tonight, as you rest, let this imagined scene drift through you. See yourself as both the seeker and the sought. See yourself as both the archaeologist brushing sand from stone and the ruin waiting to be found. In that duality lies a quiet truth. Nothing lasts forever, but nothing is entirely lost either, because even when the earth erases our monuments, the story continues. And in that continuation, we live again. Science gives us data. Philosophy gives us meaning. When we weave the two together, we create music notes of fact paired with chords of reflection. Tonight, let us listen to that quiet symphony where each scientific insight becomes not just information, but an invitation to wonder. Take a slow breath. Inhale, exhale. Let the rhythm of your breathing match the rhythm of what follows fact, then question. Knowledge, then reflection. Fact fossilization is rare. Most living things that have ever existed vanished without leaving a trace. Reflection. If even the bones of creatures disappear, what chance do civilizations have? And if their traces are gone, does that mean their lives mattered less? Or does it mean meaning is carried not in stone, but in the living moment. Fact: the Earth's crust is recycled by plate tectonics. Ocean floors sink back into the mantle every 200 million years or so. Reflection: if whole continents can vanish into fire and rise again, then perhaps civilizations too can be erased completely. But if the planet itself forgets, is forgetting part of the design? Maybe impermanence is not a flaw but a feature of life on Earth. Pause, breathe again. Let the weight of impermanence feel lighter when carried slowly. Fact: carbon isotopes in rocks record ancient events, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, changes in atmosphere. Reflection: if an industrial civilization had burned fuels millions of years ago, its fingerprint might still lie in stone, and yet we have not found it. Does this silence prove nothing came before us? Or does it simply remind us that absence is ambiguous, always half open, never final? Fact: human artifacts decay quickly. Plastic may last thousands of years, but metals rust, wood rots, fabrics dissolve. Reflection: what will remain of us? And if our remains are so fragile, what arrogance to believe we are eternal. Perhaps our greatest legacy will not be objects at all, but the influence we have on the Earth's systems, the chemistry of the air, the patterns of the biosphere. That too is story, though it may not be the story we hope to tell. Pause again. Notice the space these reflections create. They are not heavy, they are wide, like horizons. Fact: myths of floods, fires, and vanished lands appear in cultures across the world. Reflection: are these echoes of real catastrophes, memories carried forward through generations, or are they metaphors, the human mind, expressing its awareness of fragility? If myth and science converge, perhaps both are languages of the same truth, that civilizations rise and fall, and the Earth continues. Fact: the sun will one day swell into a red giant, consuming or scorching the Earth. Reflection: no civilization, no matter how advanced, can escape cosmic impermanence. If that is true, then perhaps the point is not survival forever, but living fully in the time given. What does it mean to live well knowing the end is inevitable? Take another breath. Inhale slowly. Exhale gently. Let this rhythm carry you deeper. Fact: archaeology often revises itself. What we thought we knew is often overturned by new discoveries. Göbekli Tepe, Mohenjo-Daro, Nabta Playa. Reflection: if even our short history surprises us, how much more could lie hidden in deep time? If the ground can conceal stories for 11,000 years, what about 11 million? What about 100 million? Our knowledge is vast, but the unknown is vaster still. Fact: stars are born and die in cycles, scattering elements across galaxies. Reflection: the iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the oxygen you breathe, all were forged in stars long gone. You are already a continuation of forgotten civilizations, not of humans but of stars. If their memory lives in you, perhaps forgotten human civilizations too live on in ways we cannot measure. Pause here. Feel your chest rise and fall heavy with stardust. Fact: every moment of your life will eventually be forgotten. Reflection: and yet while you live it, it is real, full, and enough. If civilizations are like lives, then their forgetting is not tragedy but natural rhythm. They mattered while they were here. We matter while we are here. Science whispers facts. Philosophy answers with questions. Together, they do not give us certainty, but they give us depth. They turn silence into mystery, and mystery into comfort. So tonight, let this interlude linger. Let fact and reflection alternate, like waves on a shore. Let them wash over you, gentle, unhurried. Because the story of civilizations, whether remembered or lost, is not only about knowledge, it is about wonder. And wonder is what makes even silence feel alive. We have walked through science and myth, through ruins and reflections. Now let us pause. Let us rest in the middle of the journey. Because stories, like lives, need moments of stillness. Take a slow breath in. Hold it gently. Now release it. Feel the air soften as it leaves. Again, inhale, exhale. Notice how even this small rhythm connects you to every living thing that has ever breathed. The earth has its own breath. Oceans rise and fall with tides. Forests inhale carbon, exhale oxygen. Seasons expand and contract like lungs. Civilizations too breathe, expanding, contracting, rising, fading. For a few moments we will not analyze. We will not argue. We will simply breathe. Close your eyes if you wish. Notice your body where it rests. The pillow beneath your head. The weight of the blanket. The quiet pressure of the bed holding you. Let these sensations ground you. Now imagine yourself in an open field at dusk. The sky is violet, the horizon glowing with the last trace of sun. The air is cool. Grass brushes your skin as you lie down. You look up. Stars begin to appear one by one. Their light traveled millions of years to reach you. Some of those stars no longer exist, yet their glow remains. Civilizations may be like that. Gone yet glowing still, their light reaching us as myth, as possibility, as memory. Breathe again. Inhale the stars. Exhale the darkness. Notice the sounds around you. Perhaps in your room now, a fan, a distant car, a faint hum of electricity. In the imagined field, crickets singing, wind moving softly, the earth shifting beneath roots. Every sound is part of a larger song. You are listening to the music of the present, and through it to the echo of the past. Let your body relax further. Shoulders heavy, jaw soft, hands unclenched. The earth too relaxes. Mountains wear down. Rivers slow. Even continents rest between their long drifts. Civilizations are often described as striving, building, rushing. But they also rested. There were nights without war, mornings without markets, afternoons, when nothing happened but silence. Those silences are as important as battles and monuments. Without rest, no life continues. Without rest, no story unfolds. So tonight, let us honor rest, honor stillness, breathe slowly. Each inhale a beginning, each exhale an ending. Together they make a cycle endless, gentle. Think of forgotten civilizations not only in their grandeur but in their quiet. Picture a village long ago. No festivals, no disasters. Just an evening when families sat outside, listening to wind, watching stars, sharing food. That moment is gone, but so is every moment. And yet it mattered. Your quiet tonight matters too. Pause again. Inhale. Exhale. If your thoughts wander, let them. Thoughts are like clouds passing across the sky. You do not need to chase them. Just watch them drift. Some carry rain, some dissolve in sunlight. Civilizations, too, are clouds. Beautiful, impermanent, shaping the sky for a while, then gone. Notice your breath once more. Feel the air cool as it enters, warm as it leaves. Feel your chest rise and fall. This rhythm is ancient. Every ancestor breathed this way. Every civilization, known or forgotten, lived on this same rhythm. It is the one thread, unbroken by time. So let us stay here in this breathing space. Not rushing to conclusions, not seeking proof, simply resting in awareness. Civilizations may vanish, but breath continues. Breath is the simplest monument shared by all who ever lived. Slashans, we have wandered far, through myths of Atlantis and Shambhala, through stones at Göbekli Tepe and streets at Mohenjo-Daro, through questions of philosophy, through silence, through imagination. Now it is time to gather the threads, not into a knot but into a soft weave. A fabric light enough to breathe through, strong enough to hold wonder. Take a slow breath. Inhale, exhale. Let your thoughts settle like dust, drifting gently to the ground. The scientific thread tells us this: civilizations leave fragile traces. Stone erodes, metal rusts, bones vanish. The earth recycles itself, burying and remaking its surface. In this light, the absence of ancient civilizations before ours is unsurprising. The planet is an efficient eraser. What endures in stone or fossil is rare, a miracle of preservation. The mythic thread tells us something different across cultures. Across time, humans have spoken of floods, fires, hidden kingdoms, sunken lands. These stories may not be literal, but they echo our deep awareness of fragility. They say what is built can vanish, what is known can be forgotten, and yet stories themselves endure, travelling farther than stones. The philosophical thread adds another layer. It whispers that impermanence is not failure, that even if civilizations before us turned to dust, their lives still mattered. That meaning does not depend on forever. That what matters is the lived moment, the breath, the small joys, the ordinary evenings. Together, these threads do not resolve into certainty. They resolve into humility. Science teaches us how little survives. Myth teaches us that memory is carried in story as well as stone. Philosophy teaches us that impermanence itself may be the point. Pause here. Let this synthesis rest in you. It is not heavy. It is soft, like fabric laid across your shoulders. Consider again the earth as a palimpsest. The scientific lens shows us how the ink is scraped and rewritten. The mythic lens tells us we can still see the ghostly letters beneath. The philosophical lens reminds us that even if we cannot read them, their existence has meaning. Each perspective complements the others, none complete alone. Or think of the ocean metaphor. Science says the ripples fade. Myth says the ocean holds memory. Philosophy says the fading itself is beautiful. This is the gift of synthesis. It does not force us to choose. It invites us to hold many truths at once gently, like stones of different colors in the same hand. Breathe again. Inhale, exhale. Feel how your body relaxes when you stop trying to solve and simply accept. Civilizations may have come before us, or they may not. Science leans toward no. Myth leans toward yes. Philosophy says the answer may not matter as much as the asking. Together, they weave a larger picture, one where mystery is not an absence but a presence that invites wonder, humility, and care. What does this care mean? It means that knowing we are temporary, we may live more fully. It means that sensing how easily stories are lost, we may choose to preserve what matters most to us, not only monuments but kindness, art, memory. It means that understanding our fragility, we may approach the earth with respect, knowing it has forgotten more than it remembers. Pause once more. Notice the quiet around you. Notice the rhythm of your own breath. In this stillness, you are part of the synthesis too. Science flows into you as awareness of your body. Myth flows into you as imagination. Philosophy flows into you as reflection. And so the soft weave is not only about civilizations, it is about you. You are a thread as well, woven into the great fabric of Earth's story. Temporary, fragile, yet essential. Rest in this thought. Let it cradle you like a blanket. Let it remind you that certainty is not needed, only presence. That the question is not a burden but a gift. That to live in mystery is to live in wonder. And with that we carry the weave forward, ready for the closing chapters of this journey. We are nearing the end of our wandering. Like travelers who have crossed deserts, valleys, and seas, we find ourselves now at a threshold. The journey has not given us certainty, but it has given us companionship with mystery. And that perhaps is enough. Take a slow breath. Inhale gently. Exhale even more gently. Notice how the air feels against your skin. Notice how your body, after so many words, is softer, heavier, closer to rest. Think of the journey we have taken. We began in curiosity, asking whether civilizations might have walked the earth long before us. We touched science with its reminders of geology and decay. We touched myth with its stories of floods and hidden kingdoms. We touched philosophy with its reflections on impermanence. And we let imagination paint scenes of cities buried in sand and futures where our own world is forgotten. Now at this threshold, we do not need to gather every piece into an answer. Instead, we let them settle like dust in a sunbeam, each mote floating quietly beautiful, simply for being. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a great doorway. Behind you lies the path of questions. Ahead of you lies silence, the vast unknown. You do not need to step through yet. You only need to pause to feel the weight of standing between what is known and what is not. Pause here. Breathe slowly. Inhale the comfort of memory. Exhale the freedom of uncertainty. Civilizations, like lives, always reach thresholds. The threshold between growth and decline, between presence and absence, between memory and forgetting. To stand at such thresholds is not tragedy, it is part of the rhythm. We are here tonight standing at one together. Think of an old lantern. Its flame is small but steady. Around it darkness stretches without end. The lantern cannot banish the dark, but it does not need to. Its light is enough to guide the next step. Our reflections tonight are like that lantern. They do not erase mystery, they simply illuminate it softly, making it less frightening, more beautiful. Take another breath. Inhale. Exhale. Feel the quiet. Settle deeper. At thresholds, time itself feels different. Minutes stretch. Thoughts slow. You may remember moments in your own life that felt like thresholds, waiting at an airport gate before a journey, standing in a doorway before leaving home for the last time, pausing at the edge of sleep before dreams arrive. These moments are delicate. They are not endings or beginnings, but both at once. That is where we are now. Civilizations too stand in such moments. The Maya watching their cities empty. The Romans seeing their empire fragment. Perhaps future humans watching oceans rise against their walls. Each threshold carries sorrow but also renewal. For what ends makes space for what begins. And if civilizations before us once stood at thresholds, then tonight we share something with them. The awareness of fragility, the awareness of change, the awareness that nothing lasts forever, and yet nothing is entirely lost. Pause again. Inhale softly. Exhale fully. As we prepare to step through this threshold, notice the comfort of not knowing. Mystery is not an enemy. It is a companion patient and vast. The earth holds its secrets, not out of cruelty, but out of the natural rhythm of time. We are meant to wonder. We are meant to ask. And sometimes we are meant not to find. So let the doorway stand before you. Let its frame be carved of starlight and silence. Let yourself linger here heavy with the sweetness of questions. On the other side lies the conclusion, gentle and open. But for now, savor this pause. Take one last breath here at the threshold. Inhale the echoes of civilizations past. Exhale the possibility of civilizations yet to come. Feel yourself balanced between them, part of the same endless rhythm. And with that, the lantern still glowing in your hand, we step softly onward. We have arrived together at the quiet edge of our journey. The threshold has been crossed. The lantern still glows, and before us stretches the vast horizon of silence. It is here in this stillness that we return to the question that began it all. Were there civilizations before us? Civilizations now, only dust beneath our feet. Take a slow breath. Inhale, gently. Exhale, fully. Let the air remind you of rhythm, of continuity, of the cycles that shape all things. The earth does not answer in words. It answers in stone and silence, in the slow movement of continents, in the soft burial of ruins, in the endless turning of seasons. If civilizations came before, they are hidden in layers too deep for us to reach. If they never did, the silence is equally profound. Either way, the mystery is intact. Pause here. Notice how the lack of certainty is not unsettling but soothing. To not know is to rest. To not decide is to breathe. Consider again the metaphors we carried. The earth as a palimpsest, its earlier writings scraped away. The earth as an ocean ripples fading into stillness. The earth as a garden crops growing withering replaced. Each image speaks of forgetting. Each also speaks of renewal. Now let your mind drift back through our journey. To Göbekli Tepe, where stones older than cities challenged our assumptions. To Mohenjo-Daro, where undeciphered marks whisper of voices lost. To myths of Atlantis, and floods where imagination carries memory when evidence does not. To philosophy, which teaches that impermanence may be the truest teacher. To imagination, which allowed us to walk among ruins that never were, and to picture our own ruins in the future. All these threads converge here not into an answer but into a presence, the presence of wonder. Take another breath. Inhale slowly, exhale gently. Let the thought settle sometimes. The purpose of a question is not to resolve, but to transform the way we see. When you look at the night sky, you do not demand an answer from the stars. You simply admire them, feel their distance, sense your smallness, and somehow also your belonging. The question of lost civilizations is the same. It stretches our perspective, humbles us, comforts us. And so what if civilizations did come before us? Then we are part of a long lineage, one chapter, in an older story, inheritors of a rhythm that has repeated many times. And what if none came before? Then we are still extraordinary, a singular moment of thought and creation in billions of years. In both cases the wonder remains. Pause again. Let that truth rest gently in you, whether yes or no, the mystery is beautiful. Think of your own life now. Your room, your breath, your heartbeat, these are your civilizations, small and fleeting. One day they too will vanish. But they are not meaningless. They are vivid in their moment. They matter because you live them. Civilizations too matter because they lived, not because they lasted. As we close, we do not need to seal the question. Let it remain open like a window left ajar, letting in fresh air. Let it hover in your mind, soft as starlight, patient as stone. If you remember it tomorrow, good. If you forget, also good. The question itself has already done its work, gently shifting the way you see the world. Take one last deep breath. Inhale mystery, exhale peace. And as your eyes grow heavier, as the words begin to blur into the rhythm of your breathing, know this: the story of civilizations, whether many or one remembered or forgotten, is still unfolding. And you are part of it here and now, resting on the surface of a very old earth, dreaming of the chapters it may or may not have written before you. The answer is not the point, the wonder island. And with that we let the question remain. We have wandered far together tonight, through dust and ruins, through myths and questions, through silence and reflection. And now, as we near the close, it is time for gratitude for your presence here, for your willingness to pause, to wonder, to breathe with me. Take a slow breath, inhale gently, exhale slowly. Notice how your body feels now, compared to when we began. Softer perhaps, heavier, more at peace. That is the quiet gift of curiosity. When it is carried slowly, it does not agitate, it soothes. If this journey has been a gentle companion for you, know that you are not alone. Many others scattered across the world listen to these same questions in their own rooms, their own beds, their own nights. Some are in cities where light blurs the stars. Some are in villages where crickets sing outside. Some are travelling headphones in the hum of a train beneath them. Each listener is separate, and yet all are linked here through the simple act of wondering. Imagine a map of the earth. Tiny points of light glow wherever someone is listening. Together they form constellations of curiosity, a civilization of thought that needs no monuments, and you are part of it. Your presence adds a light. Your attention adds a star. Pause here. Breathe again. Feel how belonging feels when you imagine yourself as part of that constellation. If you wish, you can help keep this constellation alive. A simple gesture liking, subscribing, sharing becomes a lantern left for others. When you press that small symbol on your screen, you are not only supporting me, you are extending the circle, ensuring that someone else, perhaps far away, perhaps restless in their own night, might find this same quiet and rest here too. But if you do nothing, that is also enough. Listening itself is participation. Wondering itself is contribution. Even silence is support, because in silence you have carried the question with you, and that is all it asks. Still, if you feel moved, leave a trace. Perhaps a comment, a simple word of where you are listening from, or how the question touched you. Imagine how it feels for others to scroll through those words and realize they are not alone. Imagine someone in another country reading your small message and smiling, feeling connection across distance. That too is civilization, not one of stone, but of voices softly linked. Take another breath. Inhale the thought of connection. Exhale the thought of separation. You are part of this story now, not just as a listener, but as a keeper of questions. Every time you wonder, every time you breathe into mystery, you continue the lineage of thought that stretches back through ages. Civilizations before us, if they existed, wondered too. Civilizations after us, if they arise, will wonder again. And tonight, in this small space of sound, you are carrying the flame forward. So thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for resting here. Thank you for letting curiosity settle into you like a lullaby. As we prepare to close, let the feeling linger. Your presence matters. Your wonder matters. And if you wish, your gentle support through a like, a subscription, a share helps this space continue. But most of all, your listening helps. That is enough. Always enough. Pause one last time. Inhale gratitude. Exhale peace. And as you drift towards sleep, remember, you are part of something larger. Not a lost civilization, not a forgotten empire, but a living constellation of people who choose to wander quietly, gently together. Our lantern grows dim now. The journey of tonight is nearly complete. We have walked across deserts of imagination, wandered through ruins of science and myth, and rested in the quiet rhythm of philosophy. We have asked whether civilizations came before us, whether their stories are written in dust too deep for us to see. And though no answer came, the wonder itself has been our companion. Take a slow breath. Inhale. Exhale. Let the question soften as it settles into silence. Every story, even one without conclusion, invites the next. Tonight's question ends not with a period, but with an open doorway. And beyond that doorway waits another thought just as strange, just as soothing. Imagine this. What if the earth itself is not only a stage for civilizations, but a participant? Not merely soil and stone, but something alive. Not alive in the way you or I breathe, but alive in rhythms, in awareness, in patterns of balance. Could the earth itself be conscious? Pause. Let that question float in you like a feather. It is an ancient intuition. Many cultures once spoke of the earth as mother, as spirit, as presence. Myths described mountains as bones, rivers as veins, forests as hair. Science, too, now hints at systems that behave as if the planet regulates itself. Climate cycles, ecosystems, feedback loops that maintain balance. Could this be more than mechanics? Could it be a kind of planetary mind? Take another breath. Inhale the possibility. Exhale the doubt. Next time we will wander into this question together. Not to prove, not to argue, but to explore. We will look at myths of Gaia, at the science of Earth systems, at the philosophy of what it means to call something alive. We will let imagination walk beside us, picturing the Earth, not as background, but as being. Picture yourself then, lying on the ground, feeling the soil against your back, the pulse of your own heart, blending with the slow pulse of the planet. Perhaps you will wonder, is this ground simply support, or is it listening? Pause once more. Let the thought linger. So as we close tonight, hold two questions in your heart. The first, were there civilizations before us now lost in the dust? The second, could the earth itself be alive, carrying those memories within it? Both questions remain open. Both invite wonder. Both are lanterns for the nights ahead. Take one final deep breath. Inhale the mystery of the past. Exhale the possibility of the living earth. Let your body soften, let your eyes grow heavy, let your mind drift toward dreams where both questions continue to whisper. And when you wake, the lantern will still be here, ready to light the path to the next journey.